There are moments when disorder does not announce itself with urgency or intent. It arrives lightly, almost playfully, slipping between routines until it begins to affect the flow of everyday life. Most disruptions are easy to categorize. They have causes, remedies, and timelines. But some resist explanation, persisting not out of opposition, but out of momentum, repeating themselves until attention becomes unavoidable. When this happens, the instinct is often to correct, to restrain, or to eliminate the disturbance altogether. Yet occasionally, the disturbance is not asking to be stopped, but to be understood. What remains to be considered is how often resolution comes not from control, but from recognizing what a system was never designed to contain.
The tale of Ralph, the elusive beagle, began quietly. At first, at least, no one knew the full extent of his adventures until the traffic reports began to mention something odd. It was never the usual construction ahead or accident reported, but something altogether stranger. Unidentified canine found riding atop a moving vehicle. At first, the reports were dismissed. After all, how often does a dog make its way to the roof of a car unnoticed? But Ralph, a small wiry beagle with an almost uncanny sense of timing, had perfected the art of his rooftop escapades. He would wait hidden in plain sight until the driver, typically distracted with their phone or adjusting the rearview mirror, was about to pull away. And then with a leap that defied logic, Ralph would vault himself onto the roof with ease. His first target was an unsuspecting commuter, who on the way to work found themselves in an unwittingly short-lived partnership. As the car began to accelerate, the driver, unaware of his passenger, was overtaken by Ralph's playful but very intentional joyride. The car sped through city streets, followed by an increasing number of honks and confused pedestrians. Ralph, exhilarated, would stay there for minutes, or if the situation allowed, a few miles. He loved the high speed, the rush of wind through his fur, and the bustling city passing beneath him. The highway was his favorite, a wide stretch of asphalt where he could let the wind whip against his ears and survey the landscape like an airborne monarch. Cars swerved to avoid Ralph's four-legged joyriding antics, causing minor accidents that inevitably led to traffic jams. But Ralph was as always several steps ahead, jumping off just before the situation became too precarious, running back to the safety of an alleyway or a nearby park before the driver could even comprehend what had just occurred. The townspeople soon became accustomed to Ralph's trickery. No one was sure how he managed to avoid capture. Authorities had set up roadblocks to catch him, and citizens, desperate to stop the mayhem, had even begun to block traffic to prevent Ralph from hopping onto vehicles. But every time, Ralph simply disappeared into the crowd, tail wagging as though he had done nothing out of the ordinary. A legend grew. Ralph became a ghost in the city's streets, the mischievous phantom dog who would create chaos only to vanish without a trace. In time, the mayor called a public meeting. "It's gotten out of hand," she exclaimed, pacing the room with a certain fervor. "I've heard stories about him hopping onto a truck on the interstate and riding all the way to the next town. That's nearly 60 miles. He's become an epidemic, a national phenomenon, and we're still no closer to catching him." Local news outlets picked up the story, and soon, Ralph was a national sensation. Merchants sold Ralph the Rooftop Rider t-shirts. People shared footage of the beagle in action, discussing his daring stunts as if he were an action hero in a Hollywood blockbuster. But Ralph, ever elusive, remained untouchable. Then came the inevitable, the investigation into his owner. The woman responsible for Ralph, Cindy Brackett, was tracked down after months of exhaustive searching. Her house was a fortress, a haven for a beagle who had, for reasons only known to himself, discovered the art of escape. She had invested in every known security measure: alarm systems, fences, reinforced doors, and even a specialized crate to keep him confined. But every few days, Ralph slipped through the cracks, climbing, chewing, or even unlocking his own door with a series of well-timed nudges. Cindy was exhausted, but devoted to her mischievous companion. One particular morning, a police officer knocked on Cindy's door with a stern face. "Mem," he said, "we need to talk about your dog. I swear, I've tried everything. He's impossible," Cindy explained, almost in tears, explaining the relentless ingenuity of Ralph's escapes. "I'm so sorry, but I don't know how he does it. He gets out every 3 to 4 days, and when he does, he's back on his rooftops." The town was outraged, demanding answers. But even after multiple scoldings, Cindy could only apologize, helpless in the face of Ralph's undeniable ability to defy all attempts to tame him. Months passed and Ralph's antics continued, now bordering on the absurd. He was almost legendary in his ability to evade capture and incite chaos across the town. That was until a fateful encounter with a local tech company changed everything. One afternoon, while Ralph was resting at a nearby park, a group of developers from the gaming company Pixelation Horizonary happened to be discussing an upcoming project, virtual reality for dogs. It was a joke at first, a product of brainstorming too many offbeat ideas for a new game. But then the conversation turned serious. Why not make a VR headset designed specifically for dogs? Something that would simulate the high-speed thrills that Ralph so dearly loved, without the need for traffic jams and near accidents. The prototype was developed within weeks. They called it the Beagle VR, and it was tailor-made for Ralph's unique preferences: high-speed chases, the rush of wind through the fur, and endless highways. It took a while for Cindy to believe the solution when it was first presented to her. "This might keep him out of trouble?" she asked, incredulous. "Exactly," the tech team explained. "Instead of joyriding through the streets, we can simulate the experience in VR. He gets the thrill, and you get peace of mind." It took some convincing, but Cindy agreed to give it a try. She strapped the VR headset on Ralph, who at first seemed skeptical. But as the virtual world of endless highways, open skies, and high-speed pursuits unfolded before his eyes, Ralph's tail began to wag. His body tensed with excitement as if he were back on a car roof. But this time, the thrill was entirely safe. He was racing through the virtual world, leaping over mountains, and navigating winding roads without a single car in sight. The wild escapade ceased almost immediately. No more rooftop rides, no more traffic jams, no more calls to the authorities. Ralph had found his new favorite hobby, a VR joyride where he could explore and experience his wild adventures safely. He no longer had the need to sneak away from home. He was content in his new virtual playground. His VR excursions were even broadcast publicly through a modest live feed hosted on the Pixelation Horizonary website. The decision to stream his sessions had originated as an internal test, but once word spread, viewership climbed steadily. Between 20 and 50 residents could be found watching at any given time, most of them on their lunch breaks or before bed. The town, once consumed by Ralph's uncatchable nature, now watched with amusement as he happily chased digital squirrels and jumped through virtual hoops. And so, Ralph became a local hero of a different sort. The Beagle who, once notorious for his daring stunts, had found solace in a world designed just for him. In the end, Cindy smiled as she watched Ralph, his VR headset securely in place, contentedly wagging his tail. He had finally stopped, not through scolding or containment, but through understanding his needs and offering him a new kind of adventure. And so, in a world of wild dogs and even wilder legends, Ralph's story found its happy conclusion. Some said he had discovered peace. Others believed peace had simply grown tired of chasing him. There were theories about contentment, about motion, about the strange stillness that follows when something finally gets what it was never meant to have. The truth, if there was one, stayed somewhere in between. It moved softly, like wind over pavement, impossible to measure and not worth proving. And perhaps, just perhaps, the rest of the world could learn something from Ralph. That sometimes, even the wildest spirits can be tamed, not with force, but with a little bit of creativity.